Hi everyone, it's the Tracy Piper. I guess it's called the Tracy Piper Show. I don't know. That's the working title. Today we have Khari, who is an amazing artist. I've met you online, but I reached out to you when we were doing the Vox Gallery group show, and you are just phenomenal. So I would love for you to just give everyone a little intro about who you are and what you do and what's going on.
Yeah, well, hello. Again, like Tracy said, my name is Khari Turner. I am a second year grad student at Columbia, born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I know, I love that. But I just came from 4 years at Austin Peay State University in Clarksville, Tennessee, where I had just been before I moved to New York. And now I'm just living in New York.
How do you like New York?
Oh my gosh! I don't have a clue. I don't know how I like New
I mean,
York.
yeah, you're in the middle of a pandemic, so how are
Yeah,
you
like
going to answer
you
that?
know, I started off school, trying to get some work in my studio before I started like going out and adventure in New York, just in case somebody's like, "Oh, let me come to your studio," and then I have nothing. So, so the whole first semester, I was in my studio thinking I was gonna go ahead and get out there and have people come, and then March hit. It was like, "No, you're staying inside," and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is
No. I
okay."
mean, luckily, I think as artists, we're kind of used to loneliness a little
Yeah,
bit, you know? But yeah, it's funny. It's like, where were you when you found out about coronavirus?
right.
Which is sad, but also true.
No, yeah, it's definitely going to be a hallmark for so many people's lives. This is going to be in children's stories forever.
I know your grandchildren. They're like, I was making art during the coronavirus of 2020.
You got those iPads? Well, I had to survive going to the grocery store once a week with gloves and a mask on. You don't know how good you have.
It's true. It's
Like people
true.
talking
It's a
about
weird
polio.
time. I know, right? Well, so I want, we checked in over the summer, but I feel like you've been doing so well. I've been watching you on social media because that's how we all exist now. And first of all, I just want to say congratulations on all of your success. It's not easy, and you are killing it. Tell us about it.
Thank you. Yeah. It's been so busy. It's been ridiculously busy. And the thing about it is, all of this kind of happened during quarantine. Like first couple months, like June and July. I was deciding. I was like, okay, whatever comes my way, I'm gonna go for it. And then a lot of things came my way, and I kept saying yeah. And then I got to it, and I was like, man, I said yeah to a little too many things now.
That's a good problem to have.
It is. I gotta slow down. After this January show, I'll be slowed down until hope May is the next thing.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I go through phases where it's like I have nothing going on, and then it's like 1 week I'm like, okay, at 10:50, and then at 7:20, it's like. But you know what? Those are the moments where you're hitting it, so it's not a bad thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No. I will not. I will never take it away. It's definitely just something to learn from and then keep moving. But yeah, I'm super blessed for everything that's been happening.
Yeah. So I would love to talk about your work a little bit more. For people who don't know your work, you kind of combine like nature with like the Black experience with abstraction. I mean, it's a really beautiful mishmash, for lack of a better word. And I know last time we talked, you were really inspired by the features that are predominantly Black, like the big mouth and big noses, because we don't really see them in art that often. Do you want to talk about that, the process?
Yeah. No, it's kind of weird right now because it's in such a transitional stage. I'm still focused in on like these wide noses of black noses, thicker lips in terms of black skin as well, and in
Right.
the range of skin tones. And so
Yeah.
there's this real kind of conversation that I'm trying to pull from as far as like talking about an experience without actually saying anything in particular, which is what leads me to use abstraction. Abstraction is so good for allowing anybody to be able to kind of imagine different scenarios to whatever, or different emotions to whatever they're looking at. So, like, abstraction was the answer to the question of, like, oh, how do I have all of these conversations all at the exact same time?
Well, and I think that's the tricky thing with portraiture because I do portraiture. But what I like what you do is it's like it's not about the subject.
Yeah,
It's I mean it's about the concept, but not the actual person.
yeah,
And then it becomes more relatable, I think, which is a strength. Is that's on purpose, I
yeah.
assume.
That's very on purpose.
I love it. Man, I you are like you're awesome. I love it.
Well, thank you, thank you. No, I think it's because it's always it's. I'm like I was really into certain artists for sure that did like fully representational work and like had these figures in all these different various situations or places or mystical aspects to it. But at the end of the day, like I got to a point where I could paint realistically enough that if I wanted to take an image, I could copy it in paint and do an ad or whatever, do what I wanted to. But at the end of the day, like I finished those paintings, and then people would, ask me questions about them, and that wasn't really what I wanted to talk about.
Right.
So like, who is this person? Where are they at? Do you know this person? Like these are all the questions I was like, I don't. It's not about the person or if I know the person. It's about a conversation that the person will be a part of. And so I was like, okay, I got to figure out how to navigate if I don't want to have these conversations or if I don't want to have them in the way that they're like the forefront of the art,
Yeah.
then how do I do that? And so it took me like I took a whole summer and pretty much just like flushed it out,
Mhm.
just hard, straight, just like what does this look like, and it just kept painting until I get to a point, and now I'm at like a weird point where I know where it looks like, but I'm also like because it's abstraction, I have so many things that I can pull from. So
Well,
like
you're
there's no one
playing.
position. Yeah,
You're
it's just
playing, and I can see it in your latest work. Like you've got thickness now, and
oh yeah,
it's such a good place to be. Like you have what makes you you. You have like the fundamentals,
yeah,
and you can really just explore, and such a great place to be.
yeah. It was really when I started adding like different waters to the work
Mm,
is what changed it because at first it was initially like this idea of like the face, these features, and then some type of abstraction. Okay, I was doing it in one way or another, but there was only so many versions of that abstraction. I felt like potentially I could do without getting to a point where I'm like bored with it. But when I added ocean water to the pieces, I then was like, okay, if I can add this water into this to maybe make a connection to history and all these different things, what if I make this water, specific, like to a place, to a time, to an area, and then that's when it exploded, and it became like, oh, abstraction to like abstraction with all these different things that come and play. And so, literally, right after I added ocean water to it, the idea just really expanded to a point where I was like, okay, I can't get bored with doing this for maybe 40 years. Like like if I can find water from everywhere and then put it
yeah.
into these pages about all these different topics, and it'd be all these different conversations.
And I think I want to touch back a little bit about the conversation. And I think what you brought up is really interesting, right? Like the question is, like, how with an audience, how do you direct the conversation?
Yeah, yeah,
You know, and that's I think a struggle for any artist, whether you're beginning or you're in your career. It's like sometimes I paint a lot of heavy subjects,
yeah,
and I try and give it like I want to give it life and love, but it can be really difficult to balance that. And so I think by kind of you have like that kernel of truth in your work, but you leave it open ended, which I think is just a really smart move, honestly.
yeah. It's one of those things where I think that the way that I really enjoyed, because when I told you I was looking at your art for a long, long time before we ever even got in contact. I was like, when you told me, I was like, oh my god, Tracy just sent me a DM. Like, I was like, oh my god. Anyway, but
Oh,
what you did that was really helpful, that I was even looking at, is the use of the color, but also this use of non-realistic on top of realistic to have that conversation. And so the same thing is with me, is like I feel like there is a point where you can have the conversation straight on and then make it where somebody's in a room or doing something and it's very specific to that. However, I think that a lot of people want to see art and look at art and kind of be able to imagine all these different things. So I want it to be open-ended, in the same way that even if I look at one of your pieces, I might know exactly what I could go to, but I could also kind of think of all these variations that come along with the fact that there's so much color in these works. I took the absence of that color and then kind of just tried to manipulate it into more movement and
mhm.
texture, especially texture now.
Yeah,
Um,
the texture stuff you're doing is really cool.
Thank you.
I'm really
Yeah.
into
Yeah, I was trying to add more into it because I was like, if I'm gonna do black and white, and I definitely am gonna do it on canvas, because I do it on paper and on canvas. The paperwork is like really great because it fleshes out a lot of movement with just my hand, because I use a lot of charcoal with that. But the canvas is really durable, so I know that I can add thick applications of paint and gesso or medium or whatever to those. And so I was like, okay, I'm doing this. Now it's really time to like push that out and see like how far can I do this. So there's gonna be a lot more of that coming, as well as like the sand. I've been putting sand into this work.
That's so
Um,
cool.
yeah. So like thinking ocean water, okay, sand, yeah, like
Yeah,
these are just things that just match up that I
it
should do.
makes sense. And
Yeah,
this is the
exactly.
thing I hope people watching can really see. Like when you come with joy to your work and experimentation and not afraid of, I'm sure we all have fears. We all have fears. But you come with this joy, and I'm sure your like graveyard of work is somewhere and it's like terrible, but because I have one too. Uh, But when you come without the fear and you come with this sense of exploration and fun and just that, like, I can feel it in your work. I can feel it in the stroke, in the playfulness of it, and it exudes. And I think that is, if you're just starting out, it's like to be encouraged, because
Yeah,
who
yeah.
knew that sand in the painting with the thick that would look good, but it does. Who
Yeah,
knew?
yeah.
Who knew technic like crazy colors, and then you slap some portrait over it. Looks good. I didn't know until I tried
Yeah, right. Looks good. It looks amazing. Don't try to downplay. Anyway, no, yeah, I think that that's the thing though, is that uh if anything, if there's anybody who's definitely just beginning, my biggest thing, and something that I don't think that a lot of people talk about, but it's like obvious, is like time and the use of time, because there gets to a point where you try so many times and you have so many failures behind you that now you can do something like that without too many second guesses, because at first those portraits are really hard to do, so it's like I don't know what these colors are gonna, but after you work with these same colors for so long, or you work with these same textures for so long, or these same marks or kind of cues that you do, at a certain point they start getting so much easier, because you're like, oh well, I know if I do this, then the thing that can go next to this is this, and this, and if I can do that, then I can do this, and so it's like
Mhm.
art school is supposed to be good because it teaches you all these things and then kind of lets you go free, but it's so stick in the mud. Like our school never gets you to the point where you get to explore as much as you really could, because you don't have a conversation. It's been assignments
Right.
the whole time, so you don't ever know. Like, okay, what do I want to talk about, and then how do I explore that? Like, if you don't get a chance to do all these things to then explore what you want, then it gets to a point where you're like, okay, I have an art block because I don't know what I want to paint. And so yeah, I think that definitely getting yourself some ideas and then getting to a point where you're like, oh, I'm gonna keep working on this, and then sooner or later it gets easy. Then it's just gonna be all over the place.
That's a really interesting point, like art school.
Yeah,
I went to art school, you're going to school, and people ask me, is it worth it?
Yeah,
you know? And it's a tricky answer.
it
First of
is
all, I don't think college should be that expensive because that's some bullshit.
too
But
expensive.
I don't know if I would have been a painter if I didn't go to art school.
Yeah,
Like that's where I discovered painting, and I was like made to take the class. You know, like they
yeah.
were like, "You have to take a painting class," and I was like, "I'm not a fucking painter. I don't know what you're talking about." Well, look at me now, you know,
Right.
because I think there's the strength in that. But
Yeah.
honestly, I think if you are passionate about art and you're willing to experiment, I don't think you need that price tag. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I talk to people about this all the time because there's younger people who like follow my pages and they ask me stuff, and I'm always available usually
Me too.
to be able to
Usually,
help. So like, if
we gotta
there's
sleep
like,
too.
yeah, always available sometimes. Like, but no, they were like, yeah, what do you think school is important? Do you think I should go to school? And the question really depends on the person.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you're somebody who's really, strung up on like an idea or a set of ways or a set of thinking, like art school might not be the way for you because you already have kind of the skill. You might be better off in like graduating from something else and then doing an MFA program because it'll be a little bit more inclined to like exactly what your focus is.
Mhm.
But then, because you can go into an MFA without having a BFA. I know some people don't know that either, so I was like so surprised because there's a lot of famous people who don't have BFAs that have MFAs. Like,
I actually didn't know that. Tell the
yeah,
people.
yeah,
Repeat it one more time.
like Amy Sherrill doesn't have a BFA, but she has an MFA. Yeah. So like if you're thinking about there's so many people who don't have BFAs but that have MFA. So if you don't have your BFA, that's fine. Like you don't need a BFA to get your MFA. So like but if you're someone who's like really trying to figure some stuff out and explore, there's a couple different ways to do that. School is definitely like a quick, easy kind of way, as long as you find some type of financial gain. Yeah,
Yeah.
that finances to do it. Because if you got the finances, or like maybe some like Pell grants or something like that, stuff like that, then school can work its way out. Like you can get into a nice school and have some direction. Because the thing about it is there's a lot of history that's behind all this art, and that history is super important only because it helps you figure out where people have already gone and where
Mhm.
you can go. So if you want to do something completely brand new, like
You
it
gotta
would be
look
good
back.
to know that history, and then to also then be taught some of the things that maybe you don't know. Like also, yeah, yeah, painting. I didn't have too many instructions on my painting classes. However, what I did have that was really great was the instructions on my 2D and 3D classes as far as color, shades, value, that
Warm.
type of stuff. Like I was dabbling in it and I knew what I liked, but I didn't know why I liked it. So like
Mhm.
understanding that why is good for school. But again, you can do residency programs or you can do online programs. There's so many YouTube videos now. So it's like, where do you want to get your information from? And then how do you want it to be delivered to you? If you want a degree at the end of getting all this information, school is great.
Mhm.
If you're open and you're trying to figure out, the voice you want, school is great. But if you're on some other stuff, as far as like you have more of an idea of what you want to do, maybe you don't have a certain type of guidance to help you get to a point where maybe you're selling any of the work or something like that, then residencies, grant programs, and eventually, if you want to, MFA programs are great for kind of helping lead you into conversations of how to make this art work for you a little bit better. But there's a lot of people who don't have MFAs that are also doing amazing. So it's
But
not
this
like
is
you
great
really,
advice.
but
You
yeah,
know, this is great advice, and that's the other thing. Like, I am a big person of like, I have a vision. I'm just gonna do it. You know, you don't. What do I always say? You don't have to be great to get started, but you gotta get started to be great.
you do. It's
I am a
sometimes
big
it's
believer in that because it's like I don't know. I just think if you just work hard and you have a vision and your vision grows, like of course it changes, but you can get somewhere with that. But like, art is so hard. You have to be passionate.
yeah.
It's not just gonna happen.
I seen a quote the other day, and somebody somebody said, "This makes me feel so good." Pablo Picasso did like 50,000 paintings, and everybody loves maybe like 200 of them. If you imagine how many works and how hard you have to work to do 50,000 paintings, and then to imagine maybe only like 200 out of the 50,000 you did, people like, you gotta get to a point where you're like, I just gotta start. Because you never know when that 100th one might be the hit that changes your whole life. Like, literally, I think I had maybe one picture that started it all for me this semester, not this semester, but this like year. I had a lot of different things going, but there was like one image that I had, and after I finished this image, it like went everywhere, and because it went everywhere, everybody else saw it, and then soon later saw all the rest of the work I've been doing this whole time. It was like, oh, I'm gonna keep an eye out on you.
Mm-hmm.
And those eyes
Mm-hmm.
have been watching, and it's been great because
Yeah.
I just been working. I haven't asked for anything. I really have just been like, I need to do this. Like, especially because I was working like a regular job for so long, and I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which is, I think that's also a thing too. Is like, artists sacrifice for sure. And to make it really work, you gotta really focus in on like how to make that thing happen.
Yeah.
Because there's gonna be some nights there's no sleep, and there's gonna be nights where you're like, I don't want to go into the studio, and you don't have to at all, but maybe go the next day or the day after that. Take some holidays off, but like
Yeah.
always come back to it. So it's like one thing or another.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the work
Yeah,
portion of being an artist, is that you show up.
yeah. Show
But
up and show out.
yeah. And you just, I think people have this like idea of artists as like, I sleep till 1 and I smoke cigarettes and think about life, but the reality is there's maybe
That's
a
true.
little bit of
That is very true. That's how they make it seem on TV.
yeah,
You're that accomplished lawyer, and then your art significant other is on the couch, and they're not going anywhere. And
yeah.
I'm trying to sell a painting, but I can't get up.
But honestly, as a working artist, a lot of
Oh
it
yeah,
is business. Like I do a lot of
super business.
emails, spreadsheets,
Oh
um,
my god.
budgeting, the boring stuff.
Yeah,
But that's the stuff that, makes it a career.
yeah, 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 for sure. I think that there's definitely a conversation to be had, because the thing about art school too is that they don't teach you any of that.
Nope.
They get you to, how do you want to make art? How do you feel about art? And then maybe your last semester and the last couple months, they're like, anybody want to be an artist for real? What? I came out of the school for nothing. You're like, no, no, no. We're gonna help you out now.
Yeah.
It looks like you've been doing good these past 4 years. I think you might be ready for us to tell you how to make this thing work. You're like, what? But I
Dude,
graduate next week.
my college, not to throw them under the bus or anything, because I love that school. But this is a huge issue with higher education. And actually, if you want to get real about it, because I'm from Oakland, even just education in general, nobody teaches you how to do your taxes. Nobody
No,
tells you how to balance a spreadsheet, and you don't
no,
get that in college either. So honestly,
yeah.
what we need like, okay, maybe that's my next idea. We're gonna do a series about how to run the business in art. We need it. I mean, it's truth.
There's so many books to it, but there could be easily classes upon classes upon classes. And the thing about it is, there's a bunch of classes out there, but you have to know somebody who knows the classes. It's like knowing unknown unknowns are out there. So it's like, if you don't know about the places that can help you or teach you to do all of this, then there's nobody who's going to be able to help you do all of this. So it's like,
Yeah.
there's so many programs, and it's only because of me going to Columbia and kind of getting in touch with the people I've like finally met have I known about those things. Me
Yeah.
coming from Tennessee in the middle of nowhere, I didn't know anything. I didn't nothing. And the problem is that a lot of art communities are just bubbles. And so they, like in Nashville, it's set up where, if you're in Nashville, it's really hard to get outside of Nashville.
Mm.
If you're in New York, New York is great, but also once you're in New York, it's really hard to get outside of New York unless you go straight to like California or Chicago or some like one of these bigger cities. But you usually don't even go south unless it's Miami. So it's
Yeah.
like, how do you get outside of that arts community that you have in your town? Because once like a smaller town, you're gonna have to figure out a way to be able to talk to somebody who can collect from maybe Europe or DC. Like all of these, there's so many places that might like your work, but in your town you might not have anybody who likes your work. So it's like how you got to figure out a way to get to more voices through just kind of communicating. And the school doesn't teach you any of that to begin with. You got to kind of find out when you get to a point where you're like, I'm not making any money, and they're like, oh well, what are you doing? You're like,
Well, I mean, that's that too. I think in the last, I mean, social media has upended the traditional model, at least for me.
oh, for a fact, me.
And I
I'm
think,
only doing what I'm doing now because of social media.
yeah, I mean, I think when I started as a woman, it was very hard to get a show, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I even had advice, like someone said to me, don't wear your wedding ring. Like, fuck off. Oops. You know what I mean? And so,
That's crazy, but that's also like patriarchy, misogyny, and all these other things. Like, oh, if I look at this woman's hand and she married, that
then I
I'm
don't
not
like
giving
her
her.
art.
It's like what?
Right?
Yeah.
But then I really adopted Instagram early on in my career. And it was huge for me. I've sold paintings off of Instagram through
Oh yeah,
them,
definitely.
you
Oh yeah,
know?
for a fact.
And so I do think in some ways, like, of course, I'm a big proponent of a gallery artist representation. And I love working with Voss Gallery. I think they're great. I think galleries can take your work to the next level. They kind of give you a space and time to think about a solo show as opposed to the next image and the next image and the next image.
Yeah,
And pairing with them, you can do other interesting things. But I
yeah,
also don't think people need to wait for that. You know,
yeah.
if you're
No,
just getting started, just put it out there and you're going to figure out what you like. You're going to figure out what works, what doesn't work. If your message is reading, if you have a message.
yeah, right. Those are huge.
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, for sure. And I think that it's even more obvious now because of how functional social media can be. And you can like really kind of create your own and navigate your own settings through social media. And there's ways to do it, but I think that people just, have to start. You were right. Like you gotta start.
Yeah.
Like you can't get more people if you don't post, and you can't get more shares if there's nothing to share. Like you gotta start to at least put a groundwork down so that when people start getting interest, then boom, those things are there. My grandfather used to tell me luck was not something that just happened by chance. Luck is you being prepared and then an opportunity coming up.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you are prepared at all times and then something happens randomly and you're ready to go, good. That's good. It's good to
Mm-hmm.
go. It's rarely ever a point where you get asked to do something and you don't have anything ready, and then they're like, "Oh, okay, well we'll wait for you." Like they're not gonna. Nobody's waiting for you. You just gotta either get ready or have already be ready. And I'm trying
Or
to
stay
be
ready.
ready. Best option. Stay
Yeah.
ready.
Well, and that's a good piece of advice that I actually tell a lot of early artists, like when they're just starting out, they're like, how do I get a show? And I say, make a show. Like make 10 pieces, make 12 pieces. And in that making, you're going to find out if it's a good show or not. And you'll have a
Yep.
show ready to shop around. Don't
Yeah.
wait for a gallery to offer you a solo show. That's not going to happen.
Huh? Oh no, I'm just saying it's a lot of artists. Like there's a lot of artists. Like how are you standing out if you're not even putting in the work? And plus, that's a great advice because one, you see all of the things that you've been making. Two, if you see them all together, you're like, is there a relationship? Is there something that's my own that's different than everybody else's? And
Mhm.
like you're making. you're like learning as you're doing it. You got to put in the hours. So it's like if you keep making work for a show, then you're gonna keep making work for a show. I made so much work this semester just because on accident. It was literally like, okay, I need to figure out this idea, so I'm gonna keep making stuff. And then I get to the end of this year, and I'm counting all the pieces that I made, and I'm like, this is over 90. This is almost 100. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm making all these pieces, and these are not small either. Some of these are huge, like 8 foot pieces. So it's like, I gotta put in all its hours, and it's just because I keep getting to a point where I'm like, I know I can be better than this one, but how do I do that? I'm trying to figure it out.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
great. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I think we could just talk forever, and it would be
We
amazing.
always do this. We get to a point where you're like, so anyway, what do we? If you're watching I don't know. If you please take notes because what we all just said, this is all is great. But it's
This is good information, man. This is great information. Um, so we're gonna wrap it up, and if you could give a piece of advice to your younger artist self, what piece of advice would you give yourself?
This is always so good because I change it up every time. My old advice was like find resources and then use your resources. My new advice is push through the ugly phase. I feel like there's always a point where everything is not cute at all. Like it's like right at the ugly phase. It's like maybe you got a haircut and your haircut is not long enough, but it's not short enough. And you're like, how to figure this out? You just gotta push through that ugly phase. And so like in this, like maybe you're making and selling a slight work, but it's not getting off the way that you want to. Like you just gotta push through that. And sooner or later it'll grow to the length you like it, or it'll look the way that you want. Or you can figure it out some other way, but you got to push through that ugly face. Yeah,
That's
and
great.
that's in art too. Like there's some paintings where you look at it and you're like, I don't think this painting's gonna work out. Sometimes you got to put it down, turn it around, come back to it like a week later, flip it over, and go, oh, I can do something with this. But you gotta get to that point before you're like, oh, I'm done with this. Chuck it. Like,
I mean, I go through ugly phases all the time. Like I'll be painting and I'll be like, this is so good. What have I done? Ooh, and then I go to sleep and I can't sleep that night because I'm like, I'm a terrible artist. Everyone's gonna hate me. What am I even doing? And then I wake up the next day and I go, okay, I can fix this.
yeah. You can always remember, regardless of what you're ever making, as long as it's not sculpture, and depending on what type of sculpture, you can put some over that.
Slap some duct tape on it, some sparkles.
Some more clay on that. You have this paint. You paint over that. You just do what you gotta do. If you're doing retractive wood sculpture, I'm sorry, you're just gonna have to get another piece of wood. Or maybe you choose a different sculpture. That ain't. That's the only place I'm like. That's the only thing that I think you can't come back from. Or ceramics if you fired it already and you're trying to.
Yeah. But then you just make another one. I mean, that's the thing too.
You can make another one. Yeah.
Art isn't permanent. Your last piece is maybe your best piece, but you're about to make 10 more. So, yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It's such a fun every time. It's like, I can't wait till we're done with this virus and we can just like go out for brunch or something. It'd be so fun. It's an open invitation. We'll meet at Miami next year.
I'm all there.
Well, cool. Thank you so much. And Happy New Year, I guess. Or I guess this is going to come out after that. So have a good day. Thank you for being
here.